Hello everyone. Today we are going to look at a fascinating case that, although it was committed nearly 150 years ago, it is still spoken about today. So sit back as we go to 19th century Brighton. Christiana Edmonds was born on October the 3rd, 1828, in the English seaside town of Margate in the county of Kent. Her father was an architect who designed the local Holy Trinity Church and the Margate Lighthouse at the end of Margate Pier. Her mother dedicated her time to looking after her family. Christiana had a good upbringing and was educated privately. However, when she was 18 years old, in March 1947, her father died. After her father's death, the family stayed in Margate, but in the 1860s they moved to the larger seaside town of Brighton in East Sussex. Christiana was an attractive lady, but had lived a sheltered life, and in her early 20s she had been diagnosed by doctors of having hysteria. Now, however, she was living at 16 Gloucester Place in Brighton, which was considered a very fashionable and cosmopolitan place to be in Victorian Britain. The town had famous landmark buildings such as the Royal Pavilion and the Pier, and although now in her early 40s and living with her elderly mother, Christiana still considered this a great opportunity to meet new people and improve her prospects. A very close neighbour was a local doctor named Charles Beard. He had a reputation as being a very good and reliable doctor. He was an upstanding and respectable member of the community. It was now 1869, and Christiana became somewhat infatuated with him. She started to write him romantic letters, and the doctor was pleased to learn that an attractive neighbour had taken an interest in him. He returned at least some of the romantic affection, but exactly how much is unclear. The problem that the doctor had was that he was married, and a man in his position could not be seen to be a disloyal husband. Christiana had an independent income, which meant that she never had to work, so started to befriend the doctor's wife. Her name was Emily Beard, and by all accounts she was a charming, well-educated and friendly person, so from time to time Christiana would call upon her. By the summer of 1870, all the letters and the visits were getting a bit too much for Dr. Beard. So he told Christiana that all the correspondence between them must stop. Christiana was not about to stop, and instead devised a plan to remove Emily from the scene so she could continue her relationship with the doctor. Christiana purchased some strychnine from a chemist named Isaac Garetta. He had a pharmacy at 10 Queen's Road, and when he asked her why she needed the poison, she replied that it was in order to get rid of some stray cats. She signed the poison register in the name of Mrs. Wood. Christiana then went to the local chocolatier named J.F. Maynard's, who traded from West Street in Brighton, and there she purchased a nice box of chocolates. She then came back to her house and put part 2 of her plan into action. She injected the chocolates with the strychnine and calmly put them back into a nice confectionery box. She then paid a visit to her neighbour, Mrs. Emily Beard, and presented her with the gift. Emily was very pleased with her present, and over a cup of tea she ate one of the beautifully presented chocolates. They did not taste as good as they looked, and Emily was unable to finish it due to the horrible taste. Christiana said that she had no idea why they were so unpleasant and would return them to the shop. That evening the unfortunate lady became quite ill, but as Christiana had miscalculated just how much strychnine she needed in each chocolate, Mrs. Beard made a full recovery. A very worried Dr. Beard accused Christiana of trying to poison his wife, but she reminded him that she too had become ill after eating the chocolates. He apologised, but asked her not to call on his wife again. Christiana was quite upset that Dr. Beard had ended their relationship and forbidden her to call at his house, so started her own poisoning campaign. She had a plan which meant she would remain undetected. She paid young boys to buy chocolates from Maynard's and bring them to her house. She would then change them for ones she had previously injected with strychnine and ask the boys to return them to the shop. The owner would then exchange them and put the poisoned ones back on his shelf to be sold to unsuspecting members of the public who, unsurprisingly, fell ill. The reason she did this has always been unclear, but it is suspected that she thought if other people fell ill after eating Maynard's chocolates, Dr. Beard would realise that it wasn't her who had tried to poison his wife, and there would be a chance that she could start her relationship with him again. Brighton was a very popular 19th century holiday destination, and on the 12th of June 1871, a man called Charles Miller was on a holiday there. He innocently purchased chocolates from Maynard's and shared them with his family, which included his 4-year-old nephew named Sidney Barker. The family became ill. They all recovered, except little Sidney, and he died shortly afterwards. The Brighton newspapers had never reported the local illnesses from chocolates at Maynard's, but now the chocolates had caused such a tragedy, they were suddenly very interested. The police launched an inquiry. One of the first witnesses to come forward was Christiana, who informed them that she and her friend Emily Beard had become ill when they ate chocolates from the shop. The police took samples from Maynard's, and their tests showed that there was strychnine in some of the chocolates. An inquest was held and all the evidence presented, but one thing they could not resolve was how the strychnine had come to be inside the chocolates. The shop owner was a well-liked, respectable businessman, and police believed that someone must have tampered with his produce. A verdict of accidental death was recorded. Mr. Maynard was exonerated, but instructed to destroy all of his stock. Christiana's devious plan to pass the blame of trying to poison Emily Beard had failed, but she was not about to stop trying to win back the approval and affections of Dr. Charles Beard. Next, she sent 3 anonymous letters to Sidney Barker's father, encouraging him to take legal proceedings against Maynard's for the death of his son. After this, the chocolate shop poisonings continued. Customers were still getting ill after eating products purchased from Maynard's, and there was some sense of fear amongst the local people who wondered where the poisoner would strike next. The police were getting increasingly concerned. They had no leads, and the investigation had stalled, so they decided to make a public appeal. They understood that they had to take control of the situation. The chief constable had the idea of offering a reward for information which would lead to the arrest of the elusive chocolate poisoner, and they informed the Brighton public by putting an announcement in the local newspaper. Christiana found the newspaper article very amusing and continued with her poisonous campaign. On Thursday, the 10th of August, 1871, 6 people in the town received nice parcels of delicious-looking fruitcakes. Mrs. Beard was one of them, as was one of her neighbours and the editor of a local newspaper. Strangely, another recipient was Christiana Edmonds herself. She was presumably trying to cover up her own crime by making herself a victim. All of the fruitcakes were poisoned. After Mrs. Beard received the cakes, Dr. Beard decided to speak to the police about the suspicions he had concerning Christiana. He gave them letters she had sent him as evidence of her unstable mind and evil intent. The police had no leads, so decided that the matter warranted further investigations. The police soon discovered that the poisonous cakes had come from London and had been put on the train to Brighton from Victoria Station. The police found out that Christiana had left Brighton on Tuesday the 8th of August to go and arrange some personal business matters in Margate. The trip meant that she would have to have had changed trains at London's Victoria Station, and it became apparent that she returned on August the 10th on the same train as the poisoned cakes. Was it coincidence? The investigators decided to bring Christiana in for questioning. She denied all allegations, but once the police had searched her house and found bottles of strychnine, they decided that they had enough evidence to charge her with the attempted murder of Emily Beard. Her first trial began at Brighton Police Court on the 24th of August 1871, but it quickly became apparent that enough evidence existed to charge her with additional offences. She had been identified by Isaac Goretta as a person known as Mrs. Wood, who had purchased strychnine from him. The boys told her they had purchased chocolates and returned them again to Maynard's for her. With all this increased evidence, on the 7th of September, she was charged with the murder of Sidney Barker. It was felt that it was not going to be possible to find an impartial jury who had not been influenced by what they had read in the newspapers, as they had all been full of stories of the adulterous doctor whose lover had tried to poison his wife. Christiana was taken by train to Newgate Prison in London and tried at the Old Bailey on the 15th and 16th of January 1872. The defence attorney pleaded insanity and cited the mental health issues that had bestowed her family. The court was told that her father, a once renowned architect, had gone insane and had been committed to an asylum. Her brother had also been confined to an asylum where he remained until his death, and her sister had once attempted to throw herself out of a window. There was clearly mental illness in the Edmonds family, and the plea of insanity was really the defence's only hope, as the prosecution's case against Christiana was very solid. When the jury went out to consider the verdict, they only had to decide whether they considered Christiana to be of sound mind or insane. When the jury returned, they found Christiana to be of sound mind and found her guilty of murder. Christiana Edmonds, dubbed the chocolate cream killer by the press, was sentenced to hang. She immediately claimed she was pregnant, as she knew expectant mothers could not be hanged until after they had given birth. She was soon examined by local matrons, who discovered that she was not pregnant, and the judge ordered her to be returned to Lewes Prison near Brighton to await her fate. All the medical evidence presented at her trial had not gone unnoticed, and many people believed that she was in fact insane. On the 23rd of January 1872, Dr. William Orange from Broadmoor's medical staff and Sir William Gull from Guy's Hospital visited Christiana at the request of the Home Office. They produced a report which declared her to be insane, and after some consideration the Home Secretary, Henry Bruce, reduced her sentence, and she was sent to the Broadmoor High Security Psychiatric Hospital, where she would stay at Her Majesty's pleasure. She went about her days quietly doing embroidery, and the doctors found her a very easy patient to manage. But there was never any question of her being released, especially after her remaining family died. Throughout her years of incarceration, she never denied her actions, offered up any explanation, or showed any remorse. She died at Broadmoor on September the 19th, 1907, aged 78. Hello everyone, and thank you so much for listening. As usual, please leave any comments or feedback you may have. And I will see you in the next brief case